do you want to see an anthurium that not a lot of people are aware of or even talk about, that is giving very strong Queen Anthurium vibes, that isn't the Queen Anthurium but can grow quite sizable? Stick around with me and let's look into it. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So today I want to have a look at a very special anthurium. And I'll give some context to this before I show you the plant. So this is a plant that was very, very delicate, it tends to rip its leaves, and I wasn't too sure where I stood on this one. But based on its most recent leaf that surprised even me, I saw it coming out and I'm just like, oh, it's a new leaf, it's okay. Wait until you see this. Ready for it? So, the old leaves, which I meant about it being ripping up. This, by the way, is the Anthurium Queremalense. This is the next leaf, so this one was a bit better, just a tiny bit of damage there. This was the next immediate leaf, which was sizable to say the least. You might be able to see the newest leaf that is still hardening off. But can we take a moment to appreciate the size of this leaf? Insanity! Absolutely insane. So we went from this leaf, which is about there, about there, always do the head test, to like, and it's still hardening off, so it still potentially could get even larger. So yes, I thought this might be the perfect opportunity for the Queremalense, now that it's got a relatively, I'm touching wood, pristine new leaf without a single cut in it. Shocking. Really am shocked by that. Yeah, the Anthurium Queremalense. Let's dive into it. So background, and I will probably be showing off most of this leaf for most of it, but you'll see the rest of the plant in just a moment. I will warn now, it has got a few millibugs on it, as I've mentioned earlier on in the video that I filmed earlier on today, depending on when you're going to see this, which is the one which is my September update. I am dealing with the spider mites, but I'll deal with it after I've finished all the filming. So this will happen after this video, basically. But background on this was a plant that I hadn't heard of at all. So this was another one of my Ecuador purchases. This is, I'm pretty sure now has been in my collection for over a year, and I'll see if I can find an old video or image of when I first got it so you can kind of see the state that it was in. I don't think that the roots were particularly bad. The roots are very, very thin on this one, but again, I'll talk about that in kind of accessories and care. But with this one, I'd never heard of it before. I saw it on their website and I was like, ooh, this looks interesting. I had no idea that the leaves could get quite so large. And that was it, basically. I added it into my basket and just went, let's try it. I actually thought, because I'd only ever heard the, why am I blocking now? And I have got that one as well. It is not the Queremalense. It is not the Watermelense. It's the Waterburyanum. And for some reason in my head, I'm just like, Waterburyanum, Queremalense. It's the same thing, because I'd only ever heard the Waterburyanum like maybe once or twice in videos before, and I knew that they crossed it a lot with the Queen Anthurium, which is why I ended up getting this. So because this dum-dum doesn't do their research properly when they're trying to buy a plant, you end up buying two. So I bought this, and I bought the Watermelense, which was, that one is the one plant that I have ever got from an Ecuador that, no, I lied, there's another one or two, I think, that has fully died. But yeah, this one surprised me because I didn't know much about it. I can't remember who it was. Tanya, it might have been you. Hi, if you watch this. Did you own this, or do you own this? Was it you that was finding that you had the same issue as me, that the leaves were coming out a bit rubbish, or like, but I think I heard from a few people that that was more than I found out about it then in terms of its background of maybe this isn't going to be the easiest thing to grow. And I won't lie, it hasn't been the easiest thing to grow, but it is improving. It is improving. So as long as you can put up with this level of shenanigans for about a year, you might eventually get some interesting foliage. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say on background. Let's dive into the next topic. So into speed of growth for this one, and this one's an interesting one. So it depends. It really does depend. There's going to be an awful lot of caveats for most of this video because I've been kind of treating this in terms of its care of like, I'm making this up as I go along because I don't know what you kind of need. After a year, I can kind of say what my plant seems to have appreciated more, and I'm hoping this video becomes a bit of a repository of information. If anybody wants to get something like the Queremalense, love the name, I still love the name. It's a moment, it's a thing, it's a concept, Queremalense, ole. But yeah, this is one that before was quite slow. So up until the stage of getting this type of leaf, and they do get quite thick after a while. I'm trying to think, these were thinner, these were thinner. This is definitely thicker, and this one is still hardening off. I don't want to touch it too much. But again, let's do the benchmark thing that I usually do for my section when I talk about speed of growth. So benchmarking this against a golden pothos in the summer, so in the growing months, in the space here, it might grow, my golden pothos might grow 2 to 3 new leaves each month on each one of its stems. How does this fare against that? So this summer is the first summer that I think this plant is more happy and established. And in 3 months it gave me, is it 3 leaves? 4 months it gave me 3 leaves. So just shy of a leaf a month. But, and this is something that I think we're all kind of learning now, the bigger the leaves and the more mature the plant gets, the longer it takes for it to push out that leaf because it takes such a long time for it to harden off. So, and I will, I'll contradict myself actually with this one. The new leaf for this emerged and started growing 2 weeks ago, and it's almost fully ready now to start hardening off. So it's not that bad, to be fair. But yeah, it's not going to be your fastest growing Anthurium. Is this any slower than something like the Queen Anthurium? Not necessarily. I think it's on par with the Queen Anthurium. I'm kind of trying to touch the leaves. It's less velvety, because I've got my Queen Anthurium here to touch the leaf to figure it out. Less velvety than the Queen Anthurium, but still got a velvety feel to it. The Queen Anthurium's leaf is a lot thicker than this leaf is. Is this the thinnest Anthurium leaf that I've got? No. That goes to the Bellatus, I think it is. But yeah, it is a much thinner leaf. So there is that to kind of consider. But yeah, speed of growth, slow towards medium, I would say, but consistent. No, it didn't grow that well in the winter. And actually, I think when I was looking at this and I was thinking, why is it not doing so well? I think this is a cloud forest type Anthurium, so it does appreciate slightly cooler temperatures. And it started doing a lot better in the winter, which I thought was because of the weather, but there's something else that changed that I'll talk about in accessories and care. But it seems to have done okay in the summer. I mean, in the summer, it seems to have done really, really well. So there is that. Ease of propagation with this one, and I haven't propagated this. I'm going to sound like a broken record because people know that I generally haven't propagated that many Anthuriums. I would imagine, and again, please ignore the mealybugs, there's decent internodal spacing as it grows for you to be able to take a cut. The bit that I don't know for the propagation with this one is how easy is it after you've taken that cut, especially considering how delicate the leaves are. I would imagine you would need to root this out 100% in something like either a prop box, or if you've got a tent or a glass cabinet. This would need as much humidity as possible because of how delicate it is, and also less bashing around and less bugs and all of these things, in order for it to be happy enough to propagate. Do I think it's going to be an easy propagation? I don't know. Probably not. Is it going to be the hardest propagation you're going to do? Again, probably not. But it should be easy to take the cutting, based on what I'm seeing from mine, but it might not be the easiest or the fastest thing to grow roots from and get it to an entirely different plant. Has this bloomed for me yet? I don't think this has bloomed. I say this hesitatingly. Has it bloomed? No, I don't think it has yet. But I'm assuming if I'm starting to get leaves of this size, it probably will bloom relatively soon. So there is the option of kind of going down the pollination route with this plant rather than the cutting route. But coming into availability. Availability is an interesting one on this one. I have, on occasion, seen this, I think possibly at Grow Tropicals. So online local plant retailers that might occasionally carry kind of the rarer plants. So I have seen this on occasion. I have seen this occur more when you're looking at the import type retailers, so the Ecuadoreras, the Tropicals, all of these things. You'll see that probably a lot more there. But in terms of price for this one, again, take this as either Great British pounds or US dollars. Low to mid double digits, or mid double digits, I would say. So kind of between 30 and 50, either Great British pounds or US dollars. You're kind of looking at that to get a decent size plant with kind of leaves that are not quite as busted as this, but that are kind of that size. The one thing I will say, based on the leaves here, and this is not necessarily a warning, but more of an FYI, and you should be aware of this. This does not ship well. It's got very fine roots for an Anthurium, and the leaves are super, super delicate. So I would almost say invariably you'll get leaves, especially if you're getting it shipped to you when it's actively growing a new leaf or even hardening off a leaf. That new leaf might be unrecognizable mincemeat by the time it gets to you, or if not, it will have massive holes or chunks missing out of it, purely because of how delicate it is. So as long as, and I think this is the thing that a lot of people forget when, or maybe the retailers forget when people are just like, I'm complaining, like they're always complaining that these plants aren't going to get there because they are plants, they need to realize that there's going to be some damage. That's fine. I think more people are coming around to the fact that the plants might not be pristine because it's a plant and it's coming in the shipping. But I think maybe something that a lot more retailers maybe need to start doing soon is kind of giving warnings and kind of saying, you know what, this is a very delicate plant. We will do everything in our power to make sure that it arrives to you okay, but be warned that there might be some damage because of how delicate this plant is. And actually giving people that warning might be enough for people to make an educated purchase then, to kind of say, you know what, yes, I'm willing to take that risk and I'll be prepared if it's not looking pristine, or no, I'm not willing to and I'll go and look at something else. I think that might be a cool thing if we start seeing retailers doing that. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. But that might be an interesting little concept there. But yeah, so this is one that might not ship as well. Do I think the prices have changed? Probably not. Do I think they're going to change drastically? Probably not, because I don't think this is a plant that a lot of people are either aware of or are searching for or particularly want. And with people like me on the internet showing you leaves that look like that, at least for the beginning part of it, and saying that it's very, very thin, that might not change. It's not me poo-pooing on the plant, but it is the reality that this is a more delicate type Anthurium. So definitely I would say if you're a beginner to kind of just starting to go intermediate with Anthuriums, maybe don't get this, especially if you really like pristine leaves, because you will get rips, even just by looking at this in the wrong way. But if you want to challenge yourself a bit more and you've been doing this for a while, this is an interesting one to have. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this too much, probably because it's not the easiest thing in the world. But it is a very, very pretty, and when you get leaves like the previous one, or even this one, I was very happy. I was really falling in love with it with this one, and then it threw out this monster. And I'm just like, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. It does make a bit of a difference. Do I hope that there's going to be more availability of this one, or maybe the prices drop? I don't know. Because I also know that this is potentially the kind of plant that if you're not very confident within your skill set to know that if you get something like this and can't keep it happy, that it's not a you fault, but it might just be that you don't gel well with that plant. So that's why I'm just like, I don't know whether or not this needs to be hugely available, because I think this would, not to baby people, but I think this might knock people's confidence when they're first starting off, and you don't need more of that. There's enough calatheas in the world, we don't need more. But yeah, it is one that I would say it'd be nice to see in more people's houses, with those caveats that I gave earlier on about the fact that it might be a bit of a trickier one. Now, coming into pests for this one, and as I was saying with the mealybugs on this, that's not the only pest that you can get on this. Have I ever seen thrips on this plant? Ironically enough, no, which is really strange. Maybe not so strange, actually, because thrips, in my experience at least, and possibly from what I'm hearing from everybody else, they tend to like the thicker leaves. And this one definitely doesn't have enough thickness in the leaf for the thrip to go in and inject its larvae into the actual leaf itself, so they can then hatch and have enough to munch on, if that makes sense. However, spider mites? They love this plant. Do they ever cause a lot of damage? Not hugely so. They're very, very manageable. Mealybugs, yes, 100% love this plant. There's a lot of nooks and crannies. So the midrib of that leaf there is very pronounced. It doesn't have an awful lot of silveriness, so maybe that's why people aren't kind of that keen on this. I keep looking at this leaf and I keep falling in love with it. I'm just like, oh my God. But it is definitely one that mealybugs are attracted to, so you need to keep an eye on it. Do any of these pests cause this to entirely die? No. Do they cause enough damage because they are prolific when it's first emerging? Yes. So the part of the reason why this survived as well as it had is when it was first emerging, it was entirely covered in the middle bit with mealybugs, and that is the point where they will always, all the pests will go when they've got brand new, fresh, soft leaves on most anthuriums, but this one even more so when they're thin. That's when you'll start getting splits and really bad deformations, because what starts as a very little cut ends up becoming a much bigger situation further down the line. Now, in terms of accessories and care, and I have got thoughts on this one. So, this is a plant that I have got always growing in semi-hydro, and I used Soil Ninja's coarse semi-hydro mix. Thoughts here. I should have used the fine semi-hydro mix, the smaller kind of pebble chunks. Do I still think this was better off in semi-hydro? Yes and no, and I will kind of explain why. So with the semi-hydro, this is a very thirsty plant. The thing that I mentioned earlier on that I thought was a seasonal thing was maybe when it was colder it was doing better and all these things. No. The thing that changed between then and now is the fact that this has constantly got a water reservoir in it. The moment that I start seeing the top of the semi-hydro going dry, with a lot of the other plants I want to wait for a bit longer before I water, is the moment that I immediately water with this and refill the water reservoir, and it's doing well. Did it take a very long time to acclimate? Did it get some rot whilst being in there? Yes. Did I take it out to deal with the rot? No, because the roots are possibly some of the finest roots I have ever seen on an anthurium, and I don't think I can turn it around in any way to show you, but they are very, very thin roots. Not quite to the level of like something like a begonia, but not far off. So bear that in mind with this one. So do I think this would have done potentially better in soil? I've never grown it in soil. Yes. The only balance there is I don't know how you would put up with the level of thirstiness that this has with even a very, very, very chunky kind of soil mix. I'm thinking even Soil Ninja's Anthurium mix, which is very, very chunky, but it creates large air pockets. The large air pockets would be an issue because of the small size of the roots without you basically rotting it out because you're giving it too much water. So I don't know. I do think maybe the kind of Goldilocks region of how to grow this would be fine semi-hydro mix with a water reservoir as soon as the roots touch the bottom. So be very careful with that one. And this is another one that's like the Begonia amphioxus, and I can only judge from what I'm seeing so far, so I'm making some assumptions here. Expect the first few leaves, especially if they've just come in from shipping, I think this isn't even the shipping leaf, this is entirely my fault, that they're going to look a bit rubbish. But when it gets to this stage, you should start to expect a bit more robustness from this plant, but you will have to live with something that looks a bit hinky for a while before you get it to the stage of this, and that might not be for everybody. The other thing that I will say, is it thirsty? Is it thirsty? Yes, but is it hungry? Does it need an awful lot of feeding? This gets fed the same as everything else, so weekly with mine. In terms of light, it's getting bright and direct light. I know we all sound like broken records at the moment. Could this take potentially slightly lower light? Yes, it doesn't seem to have too many issues in the winter. It does slow down a lot in the winter, almost goes into hibernation mode, but that, again, as I said, it might be that it's going to be happier in the winter. But I'll see now that I'm dealing with a slightly different, adjusted kind of care for it. This might still be one that the difference that's going to happen in the winter is it still have a reservoir, but I might let it dry out a bit more because if it starts rotting, it can go really quickly because, again, the roots are so fine. But it's just hitting that good point there. What else on this one? You need to stay on top of your pest management with this one. Need to stay on top. This is another one that I would say is a very good idea if you can to have a clear pot. You want to be able to see those roots in order to respond as quickly as you possibly can, especially if you're not used to growing in semi-hydro. You want to be seeing what the moisture level is like there and if there's any rot that's happening. But other than that, I say, so many things for this plant. As I said earlier on, maybe not for the beginners or even the intermediates. This is going to be ones that when you're really confident with your skill levels, and you still might end up killing it, you still might end up having one that looks like rubbish. Take that and do with it what you will. I will put it down. Oh, see, I can put it down and I'm still in the shot. It's great. Final thoughts on this one. And it's an interesting one because, okay, let's start it the way that I usually do. So knowing what I know now at this specific moment in time about this plant, if I didn't own this plant, would I purchase it? Yes. Is it an emphatic yes? No. But it's not even a maybe. I'm just like, would you purchase it? Yes. And even when it wasn't doing so great, I still enjoyed the Queremalense. I love the name. Can't you tell? But yes, I would definitely get this. No, definitely, I would get this. I would find a space for this plant in my collection because I am still not over this leaf. Sorry, I'm sounding like a broken record. And the fact that it's intact. But yes, so I would get this. In terms of a score, I was going to say, do I need to give this a score for me, personally, and for everybody else? I think it probably ends up being about the same. Oh, this is going to be a difficult one to score. It's going to be a really, really difficult one to score. If you are a beginner or even just turning into an intermediate person in terms of how much experience you have with plants, I would give this a 1 or a 2. Steer away from this so it doesn't knock your confidence. If you're intermediate towards, if you're intermediate towards more of an expert and you've been doing it for a while and you're a bit more confident, I would give this a 5 or a 6. It's there. There's still that kind of, is it going to like worry you too much? If you're a bit more of an expert and you're very confident in your skill set and you won't let this knock you back, for leaves like this and right now, just by looking at it, and when you get its care down pat, I would actually give this a 7 or an 8. I would give this a 7 or an 8. It is an enjoyable plant. It is, in my opinion, massive. Is it massively underrated? It's underrated in terms of its appearance. It can be stunning. Is it underrated though because it's a bit on the fussier side? And a lot of you might turn around in the comments, some of you that have got it and say, you are talking rubbish, this is a really easy plant for me. That is great. Please tell me everything that I did wrong with this, because I would love to know what I did wrong with this, for you to find this an easy plant and for me to struggle with it as much as I did. Please, please, please let me know in the comments down below. Give me all the tea and all the shade. But yeah, it's a difficult one to score. Do I think this deserves a bit more love than it receives now, which is practically none? Yes. I think it's a cool plant, and I think it's definitely a statement. It's definitely going to be a statement. Does it have the silveriness that you're going to get from the Queen Anthurium? Probably not. But it's still, and it is wide, so some people don't like that, I know. But I mean, look at length, look at length, look at the size of that. Oh. Yeah, that would be my score. There's 3 scores technically there, but it's a cool little plant. It is a cool little plant that, giving it the right care, should bring you some joy, or at least it has done in my experience. But yes, very curious to see your thoughts and opinions on the Queremalense down below. Let me know, let's have that conversation. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.